This video will demonstrate how to modify armor equipment by porting Rathalos Mail from FF14. First, we need to choose the base model from FF11. There are some notable features: a skirt, heavy pauldrons, and long sleeves. It will make our life easier if we choose a base model that also has these features. I use Xim to browse through the body models, looking for a match. Model 350 has a skirt and long sleeves, but no pauldrons. It's not a perfect fit, but we'll try it out. Open XimTool and navigate to Export Model. Fill in the settings, using Model 350 and exporting as a blend file. Check the Include All Slots option. This will export all of the armor, which will be helpful to ensure that the body lines up at the head, hands, and hips. Leave filter joints unchecked in case we need an unreferenced joint. Start by cleaning up. We only need the meshes that connect to the body, so we can delete the hat, feet, and join other meshes together. Separating the tail from the body will simplify things later. Start by selecting the body and enter Edit mode. Press M and merge vertices by distance 0 to clean the mesh. Select a vertex from the tail and press Ctrl+L to select the tail. Then, separate it. Now, let's import the Rathalos Mail. We'll start by doing some cleaning again. We can delete the axis objects. We need to correct its orientation. Set a 90-degree rotation about X and a 180-degree rotation about Z. We can see that its orientation is now aligned with the FF11 model. Press Ctrl+A and apply the transform. We can delete that bit of skin mesh. Our next goal is to align the FF14 armor as closely as possible to the FF11 armor. Generally, I find that a 5% scale along all axes works well. Next, we'll translate the armor into place. I'm using the neck, the shoulders, and the skirt as the main cues. We can always fine-tune this later. Once it looks reasonable, apply the transforms again. The next challenge will be aligning the pose. FF11 T-poses are somewhat strange. The angle of the arm is narrow, and there's a slight bend at the elbow. We'll select the FF14 skeleton and enter pose mode. Select the shoulder joint and try to align the arms. Usually, a rotation of about 23 degrees works well. Next, align the forearms by rotating the elbows. About 7 degrees works well here. The skeleton adjustment looks good. Next, we'll check for shape keys. We can experiment with the values to see what they do. This one shrinks the upper arm. I prefer this look, so I'll keep it the value at 1. These ones narrow the cuff. We need the cuff to be large enough to cover the hands, so we have to leave this at 0. We can then apply or delete the shape keys. Finally, we can apply the armature modifier in order to bake the pose into the mesh. This will allow us to delete the FF14 skeleton. We can now join the 4 mesh parts in order to simplify things later. We'll also merge vertices by entering edit mode and pressing M. We can now assign the FF14 armor to the FF11 skeleton. Select the armor, and then shift-select the skeleton. Choose Armature Deform with empty groups. We will copy the joint weights from the FF11 armor. Start by selecting the FF11 armor, and then shift-select the FF14 armor. Enter Weight Paint mode, and select Transfer Weights. In the context menu, Nearest Face Interpolated usually gives good results. Change Source Layer Selection to By Name. The weights have been transferred to the FF14 mesh. Let's double-check the result. We can delete the old vertex groups from the FF14 mesh. We see the waist attachment here. This is why it was important for the reference model to have a skirt. Otherwise, the entire skirt would have been fully attached to the waist. Also, detaching the tail helped with the transfer, because otherwise, some vertices on the back would have attached to the tail joints, which looks weird. One part of the transfer that can go badly is between the arms and the chest. Since the T-pose is so narrow, sometimes vertices in the chest get attached to the arm, or vice versa. It looks like it didn't happen in this case. Let's try to import the model into FF11. We didn't need any part of the original body mesh, so let's mark it as reference only. We still need the tail, so we'll leave it as is. Save the blend file, and head back to XimTools. There's one warning in the output. FF11 does not support vertices that contain both UVs and colors, so colors will be dropped. This doesn't impact the result, so we can ignore it. In FF11, let's reload pivot, and then swap the body armor. I'm using dress up to swap, because I don't have the armor on this character. The armor was successfully imported. However, we can see that the shoulder pauldrons are very weird. This is expected, since our reference model didn't have them. Let's try to fix it. Before filming, I exported a different model that has pauldrons, and checked which joints they are attached to. For Mithra, the left pauldron is joint 54, and the right is joint 69. Start by selecting the vertices, and removing their existing attachment. Then, attach them with full strength to the desired joint. Do the same for the other pauldron. I messed this one up at first, because I didn't see the little mesh underneath the others. The pauldrons are now fixed. However, I don't like them, so let's remove them. Select them, separate them to their own object, and mark them as reference only. That's better. However, there are some strange dark spots on the model, particularly around the collar. We can fix this by recalculating the vertex normals. Select all of the faces, and then press Alt+N. Usually, set from faces works well. The dark spots around the neck have been fixed, but now the pieces around the waist are behaving oddly. They are much darker than they should be. Let's enable Face Orientation display in the viewport. The faces around the waist are red, which means that they are facing inward. Let's select them and flip them. Looks good. We'll try importing this. The waist is now fixed, and the mesh mod is complete. A good way to test the joint weights is to use the dance emotes and to sit. These put the joints through a wide range of motion, and will highlight any clipping. There is a little clipping in the leg while sitting. This could be fixed by fine-tuning the weights. Lastly, let's compress the textures from FF14. These are fairly large PNG images, so we'll compress them to half-size DXT3 images. This follows the same steps as the previous tutorial. We'll use NVIDIA TextureTools exporter to do the conversion, save the .dds files using the same name as the .png files, and re-import the result. We could also follow the steps from the last tutorial to bake the normal and specular textures into the diffuse texture. This makes up for some of the lost detail. I will leave it out for this video, as the step is optional, and the tutorial is already quite long. The mod is now complete.